Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the IAM385 podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Jordan Gross of Journey to Cloud9. Jordan, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Hey, what's up, Gresham? Thank you so much for having me on. I've been super excited for this one as we connected first about a little over a year ago on one of your blogs. So this is nice to finally get back in touch and add some value to maybe a new audience, maybe the same one, but do it in a podcast form, which is always fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of all this technology. We had the opportunity to feature you on the blog, which is always very much so appreciated, and then get the opportunity to hear you over the airways as well too, which is awesome
right.
as well. And
yeah.
To kick everything off, I wanted to read a little bit more about Jordan so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And Jordan is a Northwestern and Kellogg School of Management graduate, a two-time startup founder, a TEDx speaker, and a #1 best-selling author. His upcoming book, The Journey to Cloud9, provides a new approach to the personal development world by using fictional storytelling to reveal some of life's most meaningful principles. Jordan has been asking hundreds of people around the world how they live their lives on Cloud9, and he cannot wait to share this with you all. Jordan, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am more than ready. Let's do this.
Let's do it. So to kick everything off, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your background, or what I call your CEO story. What led you to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background actually came from the opposite of a CEO, and on paper, I was always very much playing it safe, playing it by the book. And, that led me to go into college and studying economics and probably going down the finance or consulting route. Because I interned in those areas, but I did a pretty good job of realizing that wasn't for me. And then there I was, my junior year of college, trying to figure out, the big internship, what was next. And I actually did something a little bit different where I decided to take on my own project for the first time. And I started an Alzheimer's awareness group in honor of my grandfather's passing from Alzheimer's. So it was a student-run organization where we raised funds for Alzheimer's, and it was my first taste of growing something and building something from the ground up. After that, I ended up my senior year not really knowing what I wanted to do next, but I wanted to keep building this organization that I started, and I ended up getting a master's in management studies. While I was doing that, working on, it was called They Forget, We Remember, was the Alzheimer's awareness group. I was also getting heavily involved with the Chicago startup scene. So I went to school in Chicago, and essentially I had been helping some food delivery service companies, and these companies were very small, and I saw how this small team was so inspirational to me, and I decided to start my own company. So that was really step number 2. And then that actually led me down, going back to more normalcy and going into a position in the corporate restaurant management world. So I did that for a little bit, but 4 months into that, I said, you know what, this is not for me. This is not who I'm supposed to be, not what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's when I quit and said, let me think about the experiences I've loved and valued. And it was that experience as the head of the Alzheimer's organization. It was starting my own startup company. So I said, I need to grow something from the ground up. I need to add value to other people. And I ultimately need to do some work where I am building and growing relationships. So that's when I quit. I started my first role as CEO of my first company. I wrote my first book, and ultimately it's been the journey to Cloud9 ever since then, of me really understanding who I am as a person, where I want to go, and then helping other people along that same path.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beautiful thing. I love hearing about, stories and how you kind of have progressed into, starting Journey to Cloud9, just because I think a lot of times people think it just happens, but the evolution of you and being able to kind of tap into that first entrepreneurial venture and wanting to kind of recapture that same excitement, I imagine, kind of took you here, it sounds like.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. And I really had to do some internal evaluating and say, well, what experiences were the ones that were the most rewarding for me? And it was always those entrepreneurial ventures. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had a very similar route where I look back at some of the times I did things when I was younger, and I said that I want to kind of capture that same excitement if I can in this adult world, so to speak. So I appreciate you for sharing that with us. So I wanted to drill down a little bit deeper, hear a little bit more about Journey to Cloud9. Can you tell us about your book and all the things you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Journey to Cloud9 came from a pretty chance encounter in an Uber where I was riding in New York City and I saw a boat in the river called Cloud9. And I asked the Uber driver what Cloud9 meant to him. And he started telling me these great stories about when his children were born and the day he got married and this childhood memory he had. And the more I heard his stories, the more I thought, wow, I feel like there are Cloud9 stories that really encapsulate who we are and the people that we want to be. And they really span our entire lives. So I started asking more people, and I picked up on common themes, patterns, commonalities, and all of that research allowed me to understand that I had to share this with other people. And the first book that I wrote was a self-help book. And some of the pushback that I got was that self-help is too authoritative and we don't want to be told what to do. So I decided to make this Journey to Cloud9 book where I was uncovering these principles that I had discovered. I made it a fiction book. So this book, The Journey to Cloud9, is a fictional representation of somebody's Cloud9 life and how you could live it. So that book probably won't be out until January or February of 2020. And what I've done in the meantime is create a coaching platform around it where I'm helping people uncover and really clear their own skies as to how they can navigate through the clouds and create certainty in their life's purpose, their sense of meaning, and what makes them most fulfilled. In addition to that, I've been doing a lot of speaking, a lot of podcasting, and ultimately just following my own Cloud9 journey every single day, which is based on my interpretation of the person who I know I can become, just living according to that.
Nice. I definitely appreciate that. And I was actually going to ask you that. So I'm glad you actually brought that up because I was going to mention that, especially with storytelling, I feel like people can take in a lot more lessons, especially adults. Sometimes we hear things as a story rather than being told to do X, Y, and Z. But, oh, you hear this really nice story. We're listening. We're doing the same thing, but we're just taking it in a different way. It's kind of easier for people to kind of take things in. So I appreciate it.
And I that's a great way to say it. And I never want to tell anybody what to do. I want them, I think the greatest uncoverings are when we are given advice or we are given recommendations and then we implement for ourselves and we evaluate for ourselves whether or not that's going to be beneficial in our own lives. So that's what I really wanted to do for people is I wanted to give an opportunity to be interpretive, to be introspective, to be self-aware, uncover some key insights and then implement into, your own life and see how it goes. Because that's really what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like just like you touched on, being in the backseat of that Uber driver and getting that different perspective. Not only, did you do it that way, but you also had a different path. And like you said, your journey to Cloud9 might be different than somebody else's, but understanding that those tools that you're writing in the book is really phenomenal.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Nice. And so now I wanted to ask you for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for you or your organization, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Oh, I think we hit on it for sure. So I consider this secret sauce question as being top of mind, right? So it's kind of like in my case, what guy do you want to be? So you're Jordan Gross and you are X guy, or you're Gresham and you are Y guy, right? What is that phrase before guy? And for me, I think it could be twofold. It's the Cloud9 guy where I'm helping people live their Cloud9 lives, or it could be the fictional personal development guy, right? Where it just provides this unique spin, my own unique take on principles that, they may be already out there. There may be books about them, but the way that I set myself apart and stand out, become top of mind, is by presenting it in this storytelling type of way.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, a great example and great, example of secret sauce, just because a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you've, talked with so many people that you sometimes you can find it hard to be able to maybe articulate that or tell how you found that your Cloud9, but to be able to do that, one, and then two, also be able to help others do that is definitely something that's a gift.
I agree with that, and I appreciate that, because yeah, I think if we don't explore, if we don't practice with our creative minds as much as possible, then we're really doing ourselves a disservice.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. And this might be an app, a book, or a habit that you have, or even something from your book that you wanted to mention, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Yeah, so I consider this my way to control chaos as a CEO, as an entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is, when I first went on my own and had, all the freedom in the world, I was saying yes to everything, everyone, and I ended up spreading myself way too thin. So I needed to figure out a system where I controlled my own entrepreneurial chaos. And what I did was, I considered a time in my life when I feel like I was at peak performance while juggling a lot of things. And what I've done is I've now structured my day based off of, like, I'm back in high school, right? So I have a number of different 40-minute periods where I work on different things, and I work in sprints. So it's like 40 minutes I can focus on LinkedIn, and 40 minutes I can focus on outreach, and 40 minutes on podcasting, and go from there, so that I don't ever get bored, so that I get too, fully frustrated by one thing. And so that really, I know that this is how I was, my best in the past. So this is how I want to act now.
Nice. Well, now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget, and this is a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. Or if you can hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
I would say to always fear the what if more than the actual what. So what I mean by that is, every single decision I make, especially now, I just consider, what would I regret more, looking back and saying, why didn't you do that? Or, actually doing the thing and sort of rolling with the punches as they go.
Nice. It's always harder to deal at the end of the day with the regrets of things that we should have done rather than things we actually did. Jordan, I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question. It's right in line with what you asked the Uber driver, but we're asking about, what does it mean to be a CEO? So we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Jordan, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Yeah, so being a CEO to me means freedom. It means the freedom to take myself, to take my company, to take the people who I work with, and the people who I consider, clients of mine. I really consider being a CEO the ultimate level of choice and decision making. So for me, every single decision I make, just like I said to you, it's about the freedom to choose based on the path that's most aligned with my intuition and my heart, rather than what other people want me to do.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most ultimate examples of freedom as well. So I definitely would echo that. And I appreciate you for sharing that definition. And I appreciate your time even more, Jordan, and all the awesome things that you're doing. What I wanted to do was pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's any additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And then, of course, how best they can get a hold of you and get a copy of your book.
Yeah, so the last thing I'll leave everybody with is a thought. And I like to just leave this at the end and not explain it, but rather, like I said before, allow people to interpret what this quote means to them, because for me, it's just the most bone-chilling, goosebump-worthy quote that I think there is out there. So I'll leave everybody with this last thing, and it's that somebody once told me the definition of hell, and that on my last day on this earth, the person who I became will meet the person who I could have become, and those two people are complete strangers. But somebody also once told me the definition of heaven, and it's that on my last day on this earth, the person who I became will meet the person who I could have become, and those two people are identical twins. So for me, that's everything. So I would love to hear what that means to all you guys. And yeah, you can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My website is journeytocloud9.com. It's all spelled out, journey-to cloud9.com. You can get more information about everything that we were talking about today. And yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate you for that closing statement, which is definitely powerful, and I appreciate you even more for writing the book and doing all the awesome things. We will have all those links and information in the show notes as well. But Jordan, thank you so much again. I hope you have a great rest of the day.